Next up, our final speaker is Olly Craughan, who's Head of CSR at DPD UK. Once again, get those questions into the Q&A. We will try and pick up as many as we can. And Olly, DPD are well on the way to an electrified fleet, are you not? So can you tell us more about how that journey has been for you and your experience of it?
Hi, Mari. Yes, of course. Look, our journey started back in 2018. We opened our first 100% electric urban site in Westminster in the heart of London, 6 months before the ULEZ zone was put into place. So, we've been delivering there ever since, zero emissions. And we've just grown from there and it's gained momentum. Last year, we started the year with only 149 electric vehicles through obviously a very challenging year, and we finished with 730 vehicles. Wow. We had an ambition to have 10% of fleet transition, and that wasn't just in London or in an urbanised area, that was across every depot across the UK, no matter what territory they were delivering in. So we've not gone for a city or London-centric strategy, we've gone across the UK, electric in every depot. So huge growth, and just to put that into context, 2019 we only delivered, I say only, we only delivered 1.3 million parcels on our EV fleet. Last year we delivered 11.2 million parcels, zero emissions. I can say that because our depots are all renewable energy as well. And we have the ambition to deliver to 25 towns and cities, zero emissions by the end of 2025. So that shows you our journey is now just absolutely going at full speed. We will have, by the end of this year, 1,500 vehicles on fleet, electric vehicles. And by the end of 2025, it will be 3,500, 4,000 vehicles delivering to those 25 towns and cities, zero emissions. And that will be 25% of our UK population and 25% of our volume. So over 100 million parcels delivered via an EV fleet, zero emissions, which is just amazing.
It's astonishing. It's amazing. Yeah. Well done.
So thank you.
I'm really curious to know then, because we've had Poppy and David and James talking about kind of different stages of the journey. So can you say something about what your journey's been like at DPD?
It's challenging. We're early adopters. The technology is changing very quickly. Out of our 730 vehicles, it's predominantly the Nissan ENV. Our drivers are what we call owner drivers, so they're service partners. And we have gone for the charge at home solution because these guys, it's their vehicle, so they will drive from the depot, home to depot and back again. So we, along with the OLEV grant, which sadly got reduced down to £350 last year, which I think is the wrong message to be really sending. But we actually pay £350 towards that home charger. We actually use PodPoint, which James, I'm sure, is keen for me to say. That's been successful. However, we've just been talking about off-street parking or lack of, and it is a challenge in our urban areas. We then have to look at depot, and we are part of our 25-25-25 vision, which is the zero emissions 25 cities. We are investing in upgrading our charging facilities at our depots. But because, again, predominantly it's owner driver, they need to publicly charge or at home, and that's where we're working. Obviously, PodPoint have a public charging network throughout the UK, and there are other suppliers that we're seeing a lot of momentum in faster charging, rapid chargers being rolled out. And for me, for our fleet, that is probably more challenging than getting hold of the EVs themselves. The infrastructure is, we need to be able to charge these vehicles so they can operate every day and turn a wheel and deliver our parcels. So the charging infrastructure is the biggest challenge. And for me, it's the more power and the rapid chargers, not the 7 kilowatt chargers for these vehicles, so people can access that, take 35 minutes, top up, go home, come back the next day, ready to do a day's work. And I suppose with the off-street parking, typically, because it's an urbanised area like London, our routes have a smaller mileage, so they only average typically 30 miles a day, so they won't have to charge every single day. But we want that convenience, the speed of charge, so they're not hanging around, because I think, again, that's one of the incentives to adopting EVs for them.
Mm-hmm. And interesting, just picking up on that, and I think as we're kind of getting into the chat, but anyway, I'll pick up on a question I've just seen coming in about that at-home solution. How do you handle that in terms of reimbursement? Has that meant a lot of changes to systems or changes for drivers, or actually has it been quite smooth?
No, it's been very smooth. With PodPoint, we started working with PodPoint last July, and the relationship's been really good. The implementation of the charge has been great. But we pay £350 on top of the OLEV grant. The driver typically, unless the cabling is extremely long from obviously the point of power to the charger, they don't have to spend a penny. You know, they don't have to put their hand in the pocket. It is theirs to keep. It's not DPD's. We just pay for it, because again, it's an incentivization of transitioning to electric.
Fantastic. And just curious, thinking about that, like driver engagement side of things, we picked up on it earlier with David around kind of driver behaviours and the effectiveness in terms of the vehicles. Is that something that DPD has got involved in with your drivers?
Definitely. Look, last year we changed our 3-box strategy to a 4-box strategy, and that 4th box was green, and it was to be the UK's leader in sustainable delivery. So by doing that, that ingrains it in every staff members' DNA on a daily basis. So that they've been embraced really positively. We've had to do training because they are not a diesel vehicle. Yes, there's less moving parts, and we haven't had sort of breakdowns, but we've seen an increase in tyre usage because of the torque. And maybe then that's where the education comes in a bit more as well, that you don't drive.
What makes you happy drivers, Ollie?
Yeah, but I have to say, Murray, I was an operator before becoming head of CSR at DPD, and when I was in the depot and they knew that new EVs were being delivered, I would have a line of drivers saying, when can I have the next one? And the public perception and the engagement when delivering as well in these vehicles has been amazing. The public have really embraced it, and they ask the drivers so many questions. Obviously, social distancing now, obviously, when they're asking those questions. But it's great to see. It's a real good feel-good factor that we're doing something positive.
So let's have a look at the Q&A then, because I can see questions coming in literally as I'm talking, new ones in front of me. Here's a question around the extent to which, so you touched on the fact that not all drivers can charge at home and what that means, and looking at depot charging. And is that, somebody has asked, Paul Andrew James says, is there a need for rapid chargers to be at the depots? Is that the kind of thing that you envisage as a solution to that, where perhaps drivers could load the vehicle, while there's additional charging going on?
We go back to the point of electrical capacity, DNO involvement with our rollout, and I'm sure we would probably have one of the largest private charging networks once we've completed our 25 vision. We're looking at 22 kilowatt and above, because we do want people to be faster, if they're utilising them in depot. And something that we are progressing is, because we know there's a challenge in public charging, all our chargers for the fleet are inside our fence line, they're secure, and they're only obviously utilised by DPD vehicles. But we want to install more chargers in our car parks to open up to the public in the daytime. And then that means that we can utilise those extra chargers at the night time with our fleet. So, again, that helps. And I have raised this with OLEV, actually, in one of my conversations, is there a grant scheme that we could, or a more incentivised grant scheme from the government that would mean that private business install chargers for public use, And then obviously then that expands the charging network massively, accelerates it. And I think it'd be a win-win. So, you know, watch this space.
I don't think you'll be the only private organisation interested in that model as well. I mean, it certainly makes a lot of sense, right? Because we all know from a charging infrastructure point of view, utilisation is one of the key things in that investment. And if it's making more use of the infrastructure that goes in, that it seems like a win-win, as you're saying. So a question around charging and whether that's leading to, I mean, you said on the kind of urban areas that obviously you've got lower mileage, so overnight charging and not necessarily every night can work for your drivers. But do you see increased downtime? Is downtime during charging an issue in your operations at all?
Stem time was in travel, Mari? Or?
As in downtime while recharging is happening on the vehicle?
That wouldn't happen in the day on route. They do it overnight, or like you were saying, as they're loading up, so they could be on a rapid charger and do that. We've been discussing with Westminster Borough Council Highways about curbside rapid charging, especially in London and other cities, because it won't be just us. There's like bin lorry fleets and, you know, other carriers that will need that access. And if you're talking about a property, you know, a logistics business or another that has a large fleet, you will not be able to charge 200 vehicles overnight. It's going to be a hell of a challenge to do that. And this is where you need, in my opinion, the rapid charge curbside element that the driver could be doing a 30-minute break, having his or her lunch, and again, be topped up, ready to go, and not an issue.
Interesting, though, I suppose that downtime issue hasn't really been one for you, and that comes back to that data point about understanding the fleet as it operates ahead of electrification and having the confidence about what kind of charging needs there will be for different journeys and looking at the range, all that kind of side of things. Something
that I always speak to potential charging suppliers is the ability to book a slot as well would be really good, because then you would time it in your lunch hour. You've already booked it. There's not going to be someone else on the charge when you arrive. So it could be quite smooth. Well, I envisage it being a smooth process.
Excellent. Well, glad to hear that. And I've just spotted something, comment has come in. Joel Teague from Co-Charger says they're already in discussions with OZEV about a charger sharing grant. Can we join forces to convince them? So I think you are building allies on that point already on this one, Ollie.
Yeah, just reach out to me. That'd be great. I'll take it offline.
Definitely. A question here from Joshua Gordon. The cost of charging can vary substantially in terms of obviously home connected chargers, public charging, workplace charging. So how do you deal with that difference? Do you encourage one way of charging over another? Obviously your drivers own their vehicle, so presumably there's an element of choice in how they're using their vehicles anyway.
Yeah, they have their own choice. Obviously, home charging would typically be cheaper because, you know, your own tariffs that you have. At the moment, although this will change in the future, our chargers at site are all on free vend. But then that is unfair to a service provider in a diesel vehicle, because we do not allow people just, you know, fill up their diesel tank with our diesel. So there'll be a change where they will be charged, but not in a grossly inflated charge rate per kilowatt. You know, it will be literally, you know, cost neutral to us. We will not be profiteering out of that.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful to hear. Well, Ollie, we will wrap it up in terms of questions for you just now. So thank you again for those insights. Really exciting and just thoroughly amazing job that you guys are doing at DPD. It's very, very impressive.